I'm out and about, but I brought the headset.
Appreciate that. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Will Turbot here for Demand the Truth. Fake Mike, real news. We're not these corporate whores. We don't got a lot of makeup, and we don't lie you into wars. We're here keeping it all official, and I have a very cool guest. I've been wanting to get this guy on my show for a long time. This dude's a very busy dude. My man Nahbi is here. This guy's an activist. This guy is a hip-hop head. This guy has been bringing truth, music, and good vibrations to people across the world. This guy is all over the place. Nahbi, welcome to the show.
What's going on, bro? Nahbi Reality checking in, man. What's going on?
It's a real honor to have you here, and you know, I wish I kind of would have went the hip hop way. Hip hop is what inspired me to do what I do. If it wasn't for people like Public Enemy, Wu-Tang, Cannabis, I wouldn't be out here fighting the system right now. You know, and this guy has a very interesting life. But let's talk about your early times, your beginning. What kind of got you into hip hop? Because I mean, you went from just a regular dude to being with all these other people. You have your own show, and you've talked to, been friends with some very, very big people in hip hop in not just the industry but history. But why don't you tell folks a little bit about your journey?
Well, I mean, starting briefly just about the beginning of hip hop. Growing up in the New England area, in Providence, Rhode Island, 401, and in Boston, back and forth. Hip hop was like an escape for a lot of us to escape the harsh realities and the things that were going on. We didn't have a lot of alternatives to the streets. Like people that live in environments where there's a lot of money and finance, they've got all these like sports programs. Not that we didn't have sports programs in the hood, but it weren't as accessible to some of us that didn't have a lot of money. So hip hop was something we didn't need money to do. It was something that we did with our friends, that we just rapped amongst each other. And to be honest, a lot of it started with like cracking on each other, messing around with each other, just playing around, like throwing jabs at each other, you know? And being somebody of mixed ethnicity that grew up around a lot of African-American people, you know, I always got roasted a lot and cracked on a lot when the sessions came up. So from that environment, I learned how to rap really well and defend myself in those ciphers. And that was it. And I think that hip hop, you know, you said hip hop was something that you use. I think a lot of us coming from where I come from, we used hip hop as a tool, a tool to express ourselves in ways, because, you know, not everybody can sing. So for somebody that can't sing, hip hop is a way to express oneself. Not everybody can sing, you know, and you can't really teach somebody how to sing. Like, you either have I mean, you can learn better how to sing, but you can't you either born with the ability to sing or you don't. Somebody can be taught how to rap. Somebody can be taught how to do poetry and stuff like that. So it was accessible for those of us that didn't have certain skills or certain financial benefits, let's say, with that.
Absolutely. So that's how it kind of started. How did you get from just starting to freestyle growing up and learning to rhyme to where you are now? And then let's catch people up to, you know, some of the high points that you've made throughout where you are now to get where you are now.
Well, so starting out with hip hop, I started off with a group called GBT back in the 90s, which was a local Providence hip hop group that didn't really work out in the sense that, you know, we were all over the place. And as years went on, I created something called the Universal Disciples, which was an off branch of that. And it was with some of the former members of GBT. And what ended up happening is I ended up going out and recruiting other people that I met, because I used to work for AmeriCorps, which is a national community service-based organization. I worked for City Air for a while, and I traveled a lot, and I met a lot of different people like Mike Boston, people like that, people like Cash, a.k.a. Quan Boyer. I met these people through City Air and stuff like that. So what I did is I kind of like, what I noticed as I started to get a little bit older and I started to like really not pay attention to hip hop as much, and I got caught up in the, you know, the trials and tribulations of life of paying bills and stuff like that, because I didn't really do it professionally. I did it more on an underground stance. I noticed that there were all these talented people that I knew that were kind of in retirement, let's say like they weren't doing anything. So I unified all these different elements under the banner of the Universal Disciples. Going on later, I started to host hip hop events. I started judging hip hop competitions. And I ended up linking up with Buddha Monk from the mighty Brooklyn Zoo, which is Old Dirty Bastards, off branch of the Wu-Tang Clan. And we ended up hooking up with other members of Brooklyn Zoo and then adding the Zoo to our name. Not as in Zulu Nation, but Zoo as in ZU, which is derivative of the WU, the Woo, which is Brooklyn Zoo, and we added the Zoo to our name, became the Universal Zoo Disciples, which then led, well, prior to that, we'd also started our podcast called the Chop Shop Radio out of the Music Fiend station in Providence. We started to do that. That's a much longer story we can talk about another time, but we got into podcasting. We started to interview many people, which eventually led to me linking up with the mentor of the whole Wu-Tang Clan. Rest in peace to Papa Wu, who recently passed away. Papa Wu was a mentor and a teacher of mine, and then we ended up creating the Universal Killer Bees, which is a division of the Wu-Tang Killer Bees, which if anybody doesn't know, then you have the Wu-Tang Clan, and then you have the Wu-Tang Killer Bees, which are people that came after the original that are accepted members of the family. That's part of our lineage. That's part of our outside of Rhode Island lineage. So.
Yeah, and that's why I respect you so much, is because, I mean, first of all, you've been in the game for a long time. You're an OG. Mm-hmm. You work with real people. You paid your dues. Your podcast is very successful, and you're linking up with these dudes from Wu. You're not like in ice cream tattoos and got a pink man bun. So I really respect that. You know what I'm saying? That's a big thing to me. But speaking of that too, I wanted to talk about, you know, you've been in this since at least the 90s. You know, I've been a fan of hip hop since at least the early 90s myself. And what's your take about how the game kind of changed? Some people say, you know, it started off real good and they got low, and then people say we have ebbs and flows of things. What's your take on the game now, as opposed to when we was coming up?
I think there's some positives and some negatives. I think the negatives with the hip hop game is that I think it's been very feminized, and I don't have a problem with people of different walks of life and things like that. But I think that the masculinity of hip hop has been taken out, and I think that masculine and feminine energy need to have a balance, and I think that balance has been eroded. Like I said, I don't have any personal issues with people that are of what do you call it, gender fluid or homosexual or anything like that. But my issue is when you take out all of the masculine energy out of the hip hop, you only have one type of energy. That's like just having party music or just having just backpack music. There has to be a balance. Like to have one of any.
Well, I think we there we go.
Yeah. We're back. So it locks us out of balance, and I think that I think there's a more sinister plot here, without going into any conspiracy theories, but just from my knowledge of the game, because like we stated, I'm not a famous person, but I do operate and move around a lot of people that are in the game and been in the game for many, many years, and I see and hear a lot of things. And it seems like there's been a intentional plan to feminize hip hop. And like I said, the issue with that is that masculine and feminine energy have to have a balance. That's why when you see a yin and a yang, you don't see one piece bigger than the other. You know what I'm saying? You see a balancement, and there hasn't been a balancement. And I think, but at the same time, I think that the positives of the new music is that I think that these kids have been more experimental and more open-minded, and they're not stuck in a box. Like when in the 90s, you had to dress, if you dress like a skateboarder or you did this or you did that, you'd be like, that's not hip hop. But now there's more elements in hip hop that are accepted, which I think is a positive thing, because hip hop doesn't belong to the Bronx anymore. Hip hop doesn't belong to America anymore. It's an international movement. That's why we ended up starting our chamber, element of our movement, because we have different elements of our movement called the Universal Collective, which is made up of people in like 6-7 different states and 6-7 different countries that we've unified under our banner, that we work with, artists that we work for. I mean, we've got people in Iceland, we got people in Italy, we've got people, in Africa, we got people all over the country that we work with, because sometimes the like-minded person that you're going to find didn't grow up on the same street as you. They grew up in Israel, or they grew up in Afghanistan, or they grew up in California. So I think that the advancement of technology and social media has allowed people to connect that wouldn't normally have ever met or ever dealt with each other. So I think that's good, but I think that the femininity of hip hop is a problem. I think that them eliminating the image of masculinity in hip hop slowly by promoting like the man purses and all this other stuff and all these other things. Like I said, I don't have a problem with anybody expressing themselves, and there are people who feel more like themselves being feminine or whatever the case may be. that's fine. But when you intentionally structure a subculture to start implementing those things, you have to start asking your question, why? You know what I'm saying? Why are they doing this? Why is this happening? And how is it affecting the music? How it's affecting the music is that we went from being rough and tough and tumble, I can deal with anything, to I want to pop pills and I want to kill myself because she left me. Like that's not strength. That's not strength. That's weakness. That's weakness. And that's being too controlled by emotion and not logic. And I think that is an issue with modern hip hop. And me and mine, we're not with all of that. I respect what the new artists are doing in the sense of they're experimenting. But, I'm listening to a lot more most of the music that I listen to that's not people that I deal with. If it's not like older artists, right? Like the Nas's and the D Blocks and the stuff like that. A lot of the newer, like there's a couple of new artists that I like, but a lot of the music that I'm listening to right now is out of the UK. I'm listening to a lot of UK grime music and stuff like that because over in America, the problem with our music now is that it's become all about melody. Like there's no context to the lyrical. If you sat back and you took those words and took the beat away and the melody, they have no context. They have no implication. I mean, it doesn't even got to be deep. There's no humor to it. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It's not intriguing. It's not captivating. It's all about melody. But over in the UK, they're doing the melodies, but they've got lyrics. They got bars. Like we think that we're like the epicenter of hip hop, but we're not right now. Most of the best hip hop albums that were dropped in the last 2-3 years, a lot of them, like Stormzy is out of the UK. People like that. Like people are one of the best hip hop artists in the world right now. You can even anybody you look them up and you see the fan base and what's going on with Rex 32 over in the UK. This dude is like spitting like poetry, but like hip hop, like rugged, but yet poetic. And Annie's still doing melody over here. We're like B because she don't really want to be with me. Like it's the melody is becoming the primary thing in hip hop over here. And I think that melody is it's cute and all, that's cool and all, but where's the content to it? And I'm not one of these people that believe that hip hop has to be like strictly boom bap, and that's outdated, bro. Like everything can't sound like the 90s. The 90s is over, bro. Trust me, I was there. We won and fought our battles in the 90s, man. We know what time it is now. Like you can't recreate the 90s. You've gotta advance your sound and you've got to do different things. But I think there's two sides to the spectrum. You got people who's trapped in the night. All I listen to is 90s music, and all I listen to is boom bap. Well, okay, but shit needs to evolve. Music is pointless if it doesn't evolve, right? Music is like a living organism. It must evolve. That doesn't mean it has to do everything everybody else is doing, but it must evolve. So trap and grime music and things like that, they're parts of evolution of hip hop. But we need to like get some content in there. That's my issue. Where the hell's the content?
I couldn't agree more. I always tell people too, like some people be like, oh, you want people to solve science equations when they rhymed. Oh, you have too high standards. No, I just don't want to be insulted. You know what I'm saying? It don't have to be. Exactly. I just don't want my intelligence insulted because you're right. Exactly. I mean, a melody's good. Just say something. You don't have to. It don't have to be like Einstein equations.
Don't gotta be deep. Yeah, don't gotta be deep. It could even be funny and witty or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I totally agree with you on that. I want to talk to you too. I'll put you on the spot here. What's your top 5 list? What's your top 5 dead or alive? Because I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time, and I'm real curious. Who are your top 5 dead or alive?
I always hate this question because I always find it so hard to say. Like if I had to answer the question on the spot, I'm gonna have to go and say in no particular order. Like Nas has always been in my top 5. Killer Priest, who I've actually got to kick it with a couple times, which is crazy because you know what I mean. He's a very interesting individual.
Oh, he's awesome, man.
Yeah, I actually got to kick it with him a couple of times backstage and stuff, because of my affiliations and stuff like that. So he's actually in person the same kind of person he is in his music. But Nas, let's say Killer Priest. Honestly, Don Tripp. Don Tripp is an artist out of the South who I've been listening to for like the last 4 or 5 years. And Don Tripp is he's just one of my favorite lyricists. So I'd have to say Don Tripp, Nas, Killer Priest. Who are the other two? It's so tough. I always find this part tough. I'm probably gonna have to say Ghostface Killer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Ghostface Killer. And then the fifth one, Let me think of who would be the fifth one. I like Styles P from the Locks.
I always tell people too, like Styles P didn't start off being my favorite, but now I think he's my favorite member of the Locks. Like he's kept it so real. He's kept it, and he's rocked with a lot of. I mean, just his work with Talib. This stuff that he does, man. He keeps it super, super real and super hard at the same time, man.
He does a lot of like revolt, like revolutionary type of music too. Like he does a lot of like he's the one out of the three that's more likely to do a song with like Dead Prez or something. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like him.
And that's one of the things I'm enjoying as getting a little bit older into this hip hop too. Is you see some of these people like Styles P and some of these other artists really like, because when artists come in the game, or just people in general, when we're young, we're stubborn. We want to do what we want to do, and this and that. We want to do this and that. But we are seeing a good amount of hip hop artists from kind of back in the day that, or maybe not even that far back in the day, that are truly representing hip hop. And it doesn't have to be boom bap, but just, I'm saying, the main elements of hip hop. Who do you think, as far as like the younger generation on your radar, is repping hip hop pretty well compared to, some of the old school guys?
I mean, if I had to like pick out like amongst the various crowd of new artists that are out that I like, as far as like in the industry, I like Little Durk. I like Montana of 300. I like A Boogie with a Hoodie. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of them that I really like though. I gotta be honest. There's some songs that I like. But like a lot of them, like I said, a lot of the music I've been listening to lately has been the UK music. I'm real heavy on the UK grime scene. But people don't know what grime music is. Grime music is the bastard child of the garage scene, of techno and hip hop over in the UK. And I've been listening to it like a lot of artists like Stormzy, like I said, Wretch 3-2, Skepta, Mist. A lot of artists. Like I've been listening to a lot of international artists. I haven't really. I mean, as far as like the new wave, like I said, Little Durk, Montana 300, A Boogie with the Hoodie, Don Q's already. I like some of Don Q's stuff. I like what is his name? ASAP Ferg. I like some of his stuff. But a lot of the younger artists, you know what it is? I get tired of hearing fucking auto-tune on every song. I get tired of every song is like auto-tune.
When did Jay-Z come out with Death of Auto-Tune? Wasn't that like a decade ago?
Yeah, it was. And some of the artists in the UK that I listen to use a little bit of the auto-tune, but it's overdone. Like it's really, really overdone over here in the US. And I would encourage people that are hip hop fans to not be in a box and don't be so stuck on American hip hop. I'm not saying to abandon it, but look outside the box, because there's a lot of international artists that are making really good music. And I'm not just talking about the UK. There's a lot of really good artists out there that are doing really good music. And I think that people need to start looking outside of like the traditional sense of music that they listen to. And I think that they're missing out on a lot of great artists. Like some of the best music that I'll listen to has been out of the UK. I'm big on this UK music right now because it's so refreshing to hear people spit with melody and bars, where we're not doing that over here. And honestly, I think bar for bar, a lot of the artists are killing our artists right now over here. But that's just my personal opinion. You know what I mean? And I would like to see the U.S. artists step their game back up, because, we're the creators of this culture. But that doesn't make you own it. I mean, it's like if you look back in the days, gang, the Crip and Blood culture, started on the West Coast. But now we have it here on the East Coast. Hip-hop culture started in New York on the East Coast. Now you have it on the West Coast. The point that I'm making is that once culture starts, now you got Bloods and Crips and people doing hip-hop in Europe. Like legit, there's some wannabes, but there's legit people really doing hip hop, really banging that shit for real, like real official. Like people, I was down in Belize when I went to school in Belize. There were Bloods and Crips down there, and them dudes is official, a real deal official. My point in bringing that up is that once the culture becomes alive, it takes a life of its own and it goes other places. So to think that our culture is only strong and only here in America is to be very narrow-minded. And I think that people need to start looking on a more global scale, and it'll open up doorways and artists for them that they never knew existed. That would be my advice to people, honestly.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like the last 10, 15 years in hip hop, the cradle of hip hop hasn't even been the United States, like you said. I think it's been Europe, because not only are you seeing these new artists coming out there out here with real rhymes and melodies, but you're also noticing when our American artists, who we would consider underground, go over there, they appreciate the real hip hop. You see, like you can see an artist over here, like, who knows, Cannabis and Keith Murray had a show over here, it'd be like 12 people. But if you go out into Germany, there'd be 2,000, 4,000 people. So I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to that. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the future, not just of hip hop, but also for you. And what are you getting into? What are your projects going into the New Year's? And where can people find your podcast? And what's the best ways for people to get in touch with you? But so what's the future like for you and hip hop? Because, every year, like you said, you think that auto-tune's going to die and it never really ends up doing. But you know what?
It just comes back harder.
It's surprising. You never really know what's going to happen. So, I mean, even myself, too, just to say, like, I'm pleasantly surprised by artists like A$AP Ferg, like Kendrick, like Joey Badass, Kendrick, because as much as I get down on hip hop, there's always people that keep that realness alive. So it's a real good thing. But that aside, what's in the future for you and hip hop? What do we have in future in store for us?
Do you want me to comment on hip hop in general or myself personally?
Both, please.
Well, I think with hip hop in general, I think that I feel like there is a wave of older artists that were more prevalent in the game back in the days coming back now. And I feel like there's a lot of really good artists that are coming back, and they're starting to co-sign some of these younger artists. And I think that is going to some new blood into it. Like Nas brought out Dave East, what do you call it? Jadakiss and them brought out Nino Man. And then they got the D Block and them. Shout out to the homie Dice Payne. All the D Block homies, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of the elder statesmen of hip hop are starting to bring out people that they feel resonate the realness of hip hop, but they don't necessarily sound like the people that are bringing them out. Like Dave East don't rap like Nas, you know what I mean? But he has a realness, and Dave East is one of the few New York artists that are like young and out that really sounds like New York City. Like Dave East sounds like New York, like sounds like when you're in Harlem. That's what Harlem sounds like. And I think that those things are good. And I think that there's a resurgence going on in hip hop amongst the underground and the industry. And I think that a byproduct of the older artists not being as popular and as prevalent as they was, I think a positive to that is that it makes them more accessible to some of us underground artists, and it makes us interact with them and learn from them. And it's actually affecting the music overall. For me personally, I got a few projects that have been on the back burner for a while, but, we got the UZD, Universal Zoo project that's going to drop. We got the Zoo Bullies project that Buddha Monk's putting out. Also, the Universal Collective project, the Collective We Stand by Showcast Music. Shout out to Showcast Music, which will feature the artists from the multiple countries that we work with in the multiple states. And then, my mentor and, father figure, Papa Wu from the Wu-Tang Clan just passed away. So we will be dropping a commemorative Universal Killer Bees project for him later in 2020. I can't give a date for that because he just recently passed away like a week ago. So I'm still dealing with all of that, So rest in peace to Papa Wu. So that project, a commemorative project for Papa Wu, will be coming out, which will feature some notable people, but we'll deal with that as the time goes on. And, we're on a hiatus from the podcast right now. But any information that you want to get about us, you can find on www.u as in universal, z as in zoo, d as in disciples.world. There you can check out all of our stuff. Any of music that we're going to put out, any albums will be on there. Any of the archives, connections to our music, whether it be on SoundCloud or on the other platforms such as Spotify. We're on Tidal, and all those other things like that. And, and we're just going to keep pushing, man, and making music. Like, for me, hip-hop is not a job. I'm not saying I don't make any money off of it, but that's not my primary source of income. So I'm not a rapper, per se. So I'm just going to always do this. It's just part of it's just what I do. And there's no, timeless and classic music has no expiration date. So I'm going to continue to make music. I'm going to continue to put out other artists. And I do a lot of behind-the-scenes things. Shout out to the Wu Worldwide DJ Coalition that I'm a member of and one of the leaders of. We got that thing popping, putting out different DJs and stuff all around the world under the Wu-Tang banner. And then the Universal Collective and the UZD just going to keep doing what we're doing, man. Like I said, there's no like set plan to like blow up or do anything like that, because that's not what we do this for. We do it because it's just natural for me to make music and to support hip hop, because I'm a fan first of hip hop, you know, and I go to shows and I buy merch and I support artists in any way that I can, that I like and I respect, because I feel like our culture is quick to download or take something. Like if you the future of hip hop is bleak if we can't get more people to put money into it. We put money on weed. We put money on chasing after women. We put money on alcohol. We'll put money into this culture if you really like it. I'm not even talking about money to me. I'm talking about whatever artist that you like. If they've got merch, buy it. If they have shows, go. Even if you got a free download, or even if you got them on Spotify, buy the physical copy, because if you like an artist and you like what they do, aren't they at their best and able to create if you put money into their pockets so they can take a step back and create? And I think that we need to be more about spending our money into the culture that we say we love. And I think that hip hop will have a more brighter future. And, you know, that's it for me, man. That's all I can say.
It's UZD.world.
UZD.world is the website, which is currently up.
It's going to be right below this box right here, so you guys can check it out. And I just want to double down on what you say before I let you go. Absolutely. I have my favorite artists, you know what I'm saying? I love Wu-Tang, I love Rakim, I love Cannabis, Jedi Mind Tricks, KRS. I love all of them. And if it wasn't for those people, like, I could never even give Wu-Tang enough money for what they've done to my life. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
It's impossible. This dude right here, he's actually part of that lineage, of the Wu-Tang lineage. He's been co-signed by Papa Wu big time, and that guy is the father of the Wu-Tang clan. Now, Nahbi could have been on some like tap dancing, pink hair, and sold out the culture. He did not do that. So not only do you guys go to UZD.world and support him and support all his projects and check that out when it happens. Hopefully he'll come back on when he's dropping this commemorative album. But this is what we need to do. I mean, like, there's so many artists out there, Nahbi, and regular artists out there too, that just never sold out. And they could have took that money to sell out and put whack hip out there or sold their soul, but they didn't. So those are the people like Nahbi and the underground artists and the people who never sold out, never compromised their integrity. Those are the people you really need to support, because they could have did that. They could have shitted on you, and they did. So Nahbi, thank you very much. I want you guys to all right now go to UZD.world. The link is right there. Support this man. Can help keep real hip hop alive. Nahbi, God bless you, man. You enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for spending some time with me, brother.
Love, peace, and hip hop, bro.